Today on the PIO podcast, I'd like to welcome and introduce PIO Katie Watts. She's from the Public Relations Bureau at the Fairfax County Police Department. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today.
Katie, thank you very much for being here. We have a lot to talk about today, but I'd like to start by sharing your role in Fairfax County Department and how traffic safety fits into the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a public information officer. I'm a sworn police officer. I've been a public information officer for 2 years now in Fairfax County. I'm in my 10th year of law enforcement, and traffic safety is stuff that we deal with every day in our office, whether it's a press release about, a traffic safety campaign that we're doing with increased traffic enforcement, and also in the content that we share. So in the world of social media, we try to share a reel or, type of short form video every single day and show the work that our officers are doing every day. So we love to lean into using body camera footage, just stuff that our officers are seeing and doing. And traffic safety is such a concern for everybody, especially in Northern Virginia, in such a busy area. There's people speeding and a lot of different concerns. So we like to reassure and show our community that, hey, our officers are doing, they're pulling people over for this stuff every day to try to help make our roads safer.
Awesome. Katie, I should have asked this question before. Your background. So you've been here 10 years, but did you always want to be a PIO?
No, I think, it's interesting how my path led me here. I started out, I went through the academy in 2016 and, started on patrol like everybody does in our Mount Vernon district. So it's a busier district and I love it. I love working on Route 1. And from there, in working patrol, I got into a lot of community events and building relationships in the community. So then from patrol, once I became a police officer first class, I transitioned to the community outreach position at my station. And I did that for 4 years. I did that through COVID and like before, during, and after COVID. And it was interesting to see all the different phases of, the types of outreach that we could do before, during, and after, and how that evolved. And I love that position again. And I think when you're in a, very public, law enforcement is public facing anyways. You're out in the public, you're the face of your agency. But when you're in an outreach position, it's just even more elevated. You're really out there, you're the face of your station. People come to you. And I think that kind of set me up perfectly to be a public information officer. So back in 2020, I actually did a temporary assignment with our Public Affairs Bureau, and I did a lot of on-camera stuff. We kind of did like the director at the time wanted to do a similar series that he did out in Chicago when he was the director out there. They did like a media car where they would kind of go around and out to different scenes and show, live, what our officers are up to and just report, the day-to-day things that are going on. So we were doing that. And then I went back to my outreach position, and then the opportunity arose again in 2023 to come up as a full-time public information officer. And then now here I am.
Awesome. All right. So, real quick, demographics for the department. How many sworn and how many civilian employees you guys have?
So sworn, we have about 1,400 when we're fully staffed. So we're a big department. We are 400 square miles. We serve 1.3 million residents in Fairfax County, right outside Washington, D.C., big area. We have the 9 district stations across those 400 square miles. So we have, basically the size of one district station could be the size of another police department. So it's a lot of, we're covering communications across the whole county and across all those district stations, which every station has their own identity as well. So we try to make sure that we're covering, we're trying to tap into the people that live in Centerville, like, hey, we're doing enforcement here. And then the people that live on, in the Alexandria section of the county, we're also over here and we're in McLean. And, you got to like make your rounds a little bit in such a large area. And then
Okay.
civilian wise, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. But finish that up.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number of civilians that we have, but we do have a lot between administrative positions, but we also have investigative support aides. We have police citizen aides, and they are at the stations. And so we wouldn't be where we are without our civilian personnel.
Right. So this leads me to my second question here is, what were some of the challenges that you faced? You alluded to it already, the different identities for the different stations in communicating traffic safety messages before you started using what we're going to talk about, which is Tappy.
Yes. I think people are inherently interested in law enforcement and of course safety and the safety of in the community, but how in the world that is so fast paced nowadays, how do you get people, you could always we'll always do press releases. We'll write a blog and share with our community, that we have a road shark traffic safety campaign coming up. We do 5 waves of that in within a year time span, and that's just an increased traffic enforcement effort where we partner with Virginia State Police, and we're out really out there in the community revving up, road safety, educating, and also just pulling people over for violations. And but also, how do you lock people in across a wide demographic? So blogs can maybe lean into media more, it's media focused. Maybe, people that the older, generations kind of are more into reading format, but how do you lock in and educate and also let people know in the younger community, you know, we're out there, we're out doing enforcement. I know you care about your community and traffic safety, but also, hey, if you're the one speeding, you know, hey, we're also going to be out there. So it's
Right.
educational in a lot of different ways. So we love doing reels. We love doing short form video. About 2 years ago, we transitioned our social media strategy on Instagram to only posting short form video on there. And we've had amazing growth since then, which helps in so many ways. It helps with getting the word out there about FCPD. It helps with amplifying the message of education and traffic safety, but also it helps with recruiting. So, we're getting our name and our brand and our agency out there. People may not have known who the Fairfax County Police Department were, but maybe they see one of our videos and maybe they see the series with Tappy and they're like, well, now I'm a follower, so now we're on their board, whether they live here or not. And so we're getting
Right.
in a lot of different ways, we're expanding our reach and educating and just doing it in a way that grabs people's attention.
Excellent. For those people that aren't familiar what Tappy is, how are you using Tappy? How is it being used in Fairfax County, really? And show them what Tappy is.
Yes. So this is Tappy. I have Tappy with me today. And Tappy, as you can see, it's like a little pointer. It can go out. I can make it small. I can make it big. And this little hand, and I've heard people say it like looks like a little Mickey Mouse hand, like it's like a little white glove. And basically it's a pointer finger as the main focus point. And the idea kind of came about when, me and another officer in our public affairs bureau are lead with social media and content creation. So me, I love to see what's going on um in the world. What's trending on social media? What song is being used a lot in reels? Like I like to scroll my own feed to get ideas to expand our reach with our agency. So, whether it's a song or if it's a social media trend or maybe it's a meme or pop culture moment, the hand I had seen in a couple different spots, on TikTok, I'd seen it where, like a home inspector was out doing his job and he used the hand to point out extremely obvious violations like on the house, like something that was obviously broken, something where you're like, how, they're trying to sell this house and this is like cracked, broken in half, things that were super obvious. So we like to have fun with pushing kind of the envelope of how, the uniqueness of how we can share information, obviously professionally still, because we're a law enforcement agency, we're government, you know, that professionalism is expected and it should remain. But how do you, again, in the world of social media and millions of videos at your fingertips that you could just scroll all day long, what's going to get people to stop on your page? And in that time, in that short window that you have people's attention, how are you going to get their attention, lock them in, and educate them, and maybe make them laugh too? Because at the end of the day, law enforcement, we want to humanize this job. We're human too. Um, so no one likes stiff government talk, right? So like our approach with content is to be trendy and relevant and, a little more human because it's 2025. The formal government talk, that doesn't really connect with people as much anymore. So we
Right.
try to pivot. And the hand, we were like, we could totally use this. We love using body camera footage to tell a story, of the interactions that our officers have with people. And with law enforcement being such an interesting thing for people, the show like Cops and Live PD, people are just naturally interested in this job. So tapping into that, you have to lock people in and and also at the same time, you're entertaining people, but you're showing them and teaching them like, "Hey, we're doing our jobs. We want you to feel safe in our community. And also, hey, if you want to do your job and have fun and get, recognized for it and work in a great county, then Fairfax County might be the place for you." So there's so many things that fall under that umbrella of, our approach with social media. So it's been really fun to have Tappy. We only started these videos in May of 2025, so it's been a couple months, and it has been a total whirlwind, and it's been really fun to be a part of.
What kind of reactions have you seen from the public when you used Happy to talk about safety or whatever topic you're bringing up?
It is nothing like I ever expected, honestly. Facebook is definitely, we post happy videos on all of our platforms. We post the videos on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and YouTube Shorts. But, the most engagement that we see is on Facebook. And, we could post a video and an hour later we have like hundreds of comments. It's wild to see how relatable Tappy is because, I find a video, the whole process is, I find a video where the in-car dash camera shows a very obvious traffic violation. And not every camera, catches that stuff. So it can be a little bit of a process finding the right video for it. So I find a video and sometimes, people that my coworkers they'll laugh because I'm like, "Oh, yes," I'll be like cheering from my cube, like, "Yes, I found a great video." And I get all excited because I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be perfect for Tappy because it's gonna be the perfect story to tell." So essentially you find the body camera footage and the dash camera footage and you tap out the things that are extremely obvious. So maybe it's a red light that's being run, and I like to show the before, during, and after, and maybe a little reminder, like a little witty, sassy one liner that's coming from Tappy and maybe the rest of us that also witnessed this traffic violation that we're all feeling. It's something that we're all feeling after we see someone commit a traffic offense like that. And, we tap on the yellow light, like, "Hey, it's yellow. Okay, now it's red. Okay, now this car is not stopping. They blew the red light. Okay, now they're getting pulled over. Okay, now they're getting a ticket." And then, hey, now we all have trust issues. Everybody in that intersection after you just did that has trust issues. So, something that's funny and we all laugh because it's like, hey, how many times are you out driving and you see someone do something and you're like, where is an officer when you need them, right? Because, we
Hmm.
can't be everywhere as much as we would like to be everywhere. So when an officer is there and they see something, and people are always so shocked when they're like, people are doing this right in front of police officers. I'm like, yeah, whether it's a marked police car or an unmarked, like the majority of our cars are marked cars. We have, unless you're like on call and, a detective, most of, we've kind of gone away from the unmarked car. So people are doing it right in front of marked cars. So, maybe they're in their own little world, but we're here to educate. We're pulling them over and they're going to get held accountable for their driving behavior, which in turn, you're telling a story to your viewer that we're doing our job. We're here and we understand the frustration that comes when you see an offense like this. And, we want to reassure you that we're doing our part to educate them. And we're also educating the viewer because we're like, hey, if you come to Fairfax County, you could get pulled over for this. And honestly, people have commented on our posts. Like, I've actually, a light turned yellow and I was like, oh my God, I need to brake because I don't want to be featured on, the Tappy page, which is so funny. But it's, that's great because maybe it's Tappy's popping into their mind as they're driving around to like, as they're like little, like on their shoulder, like, please don't do that because now, I don't want you to be featured on the next Tappy video. And it's changing their behavior. So,
All
that
right.
is
So
so
that goes to
impactful.
my Katie. That goes to my other question. So you're saying that it breaks down barriers between the officers and the community, and you're actually getting some kind of measurable reaction that they don't want to end up on screen.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's
Have you
wild. And
have you have you seen different age groups that respond differently to Tappy?
yeah, I would say that it seems that the world of Facebook, which I know tends to be a little bit older generation, really loves Tappy. But even on Instagram, we're getting all sorts of love. And even internally, we're getting a lot of attention. And WTOP, which is a local news outlet, did a story about Tappy and it revealed that I'm the officer behind Tappy. So I did the interview with Scott Gelman and, I had my picture out there and it was wild to see the reaction. That's probably been my favorite thing so far is seeing the reaction of people once I was revealed and, just this following that we've created. And even, I still go to work and people are like, oh, maybe I see an officer I don't know. And they're like, oh, it's Officer Tappy. And another officer came up to me the other day and he's like, oh, my wife loves you on Facebook. And it's so funny. And I love that because not only the work that we do, it's not only external, the work that we do, it's also internal. So we want to make sure that we're representing our agency and our officers appropriately and well, where people feel proud to see the content. We want our fellow officers to feel proud of the content that we share. So that hits home. And that's not always the case. So we want to make sure that our officers like our content too.
Right. Hey, have you had officers hit you up and say, "Hey, I've got body camera footage you're going to want to use for Tappy"?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's for Tappy or another type of traffic enforcement short form video that we'll do, we have officers, that message us and also supervisors that message us. The way that we go about finding the content, there's a couple different strategies that, the other officer and I do to find the content, but we have Axon body cameras and we use evidence.com to store all of that, all those videos. So some officers tag their videos that make it easier for us to find the types of traffic violations that we want to see. So, red lights being
Are
ran,
they
stop
are
signs.
they tagging them Tappy? Are they putting in
No,
Tappy?
no, they're not. But if that's not a bad idea, to start, hey, it's like a submission. Like I have a good potential video. But yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know how evidence.com would like that too much, and I'm sure the defense attorneys go, "Why is that a Tappy video?"
Yeah, right.
That kind of thing.
Yes, right. I mean, people must know though because Tappy is making the rounds. It's wild to see not only in Fairfax County the reach that is being had with this, but um it's beyond Fairfax County and it's been fun to watch.
Well, that's how I found you, was from that news story in Fairfax County. So
Yes,
that's how
yeah.
I came across you. So that's awesome. What lessons have you learned from integrating Tappy into your community engagement efforts?
So it has helped because, it's not the only type of trendy and kind of new strategy that we've tried to share on our platforms, but it shows you, when you think outside the box and you do something a little bit different, what can come of it. And I don't think any of us knew the magnitude of what was going to come of sharing and doing these videos because now, we post our regular content that isn't Tappy and we have a brigade of people commenting, "Where's Tappy?" And I'm like, you know, like, I know I wish I could do it every day, but and we like to keep people on their toes when it comes to Tappy. We don't like regularly schedule Tappy content. We might do a Monday. We might do a back to back. We might do Monday and Tuesday. We might do Monday, and it also depends on my availability, right? Too. But
Of course.
if I did actually post when I was on vacation, there was a little lull with Tappy and people are starting to catch on and they're like, "Where's Tappy?" And I actually brought Tappy with me on vacation and put Tappy in a beach chair. And I was like, "Oh, I need to use this when I come back." When people are like, where have you been?" So I did that as a comment reply once I was back and had a Tappy video. They're like, "Where were you?" And I'm like, "Tappy needed a little R&R." So, and that helps our engagement. It helps with that like community that we've built on our, Facebook page and social media. So just don't be afraid to think outside of the box and, be unique with your approach to social media and try to be, more relevant to the world that we're in of social media that makes it relevant to your brand and your agency.
Right, right. What advice would you give to other law enforcement agencies that are thinking about using some kind of similar tool or a mascot for this kind of communication?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is the approval process, right? Because you kind of, I would say along the way, and especially speaking to other PIOs in this field, there's red tape. It's not easy to expand and do something different, and it can be scary, right? Like weighing in terms of the commander approval process. Whoever your chain of command is, they're gonna go, "What's the approval like? What's the risk reward?" And,
Hmm.
my advice is to find, whether it's a mascot, whether it's Tappy as your example, show examples of the type of content that you want to make, and show the reaction, show, the comments and the how many likes they're getting. And don't be afraid to reach out. So, like, if you're looking to expand and want even numbers, like, to back up, like, if you wanted to use our content as an example for your agency, I would happily show you, like, hey, just from these Tappy videos, look how many followers we've gained on Instagram. We have all those analytics on the back end, and those can be helpful when you're trying to plead your case of, like, hey, we're still government, we're still going to be professional, but this is actually impactful and it's helping to educate and, you know, in so many different ways. It's just helpful and it's funny. So it's fun to be a part of, but just don't be afraid to try new
Right.
things.
Katie, give me an example of the statistical end of it, the analytics. Like, how many followers have you gained since May on one of your platforms? You've noticed the increase.
I don't have the exact numbers from May, but I can say that, from our strategy shift with social media, around December of 2023 on Facebook, we had 100,000 Facebook followers. Now, last week I did a screenshot of our follower count and we're at almost 228,000 followers. So that's less than 2 years that we've had that growth. And then on Instagram, back in December 2023, we had almost 20,000 followers on or on Instagram, 20,000 followers on Instagram. And then now fast forward to today, we're approaching 65,000 followers on Instagram.
Wow,
So
trifle.
that
Wow,
growth is
amazing.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure you're engaging a different demographic than you were previously on Instagram, and that probably pushed your numbers up because you're tying into maybe a younger crowd in your format because you went to short form video. What
Yes.
kind of length of the video are you using?
So our sweet spot is like 15 to 30 seconds. And, we will do longer videos, like 45 seconds. It depends on the type of content that we're sharing. So, like, if we're splicing together video for like a foot pursuit or something that, a criminal case that might have a little bit more detail to splice through, it might be a little bit longer, but really under a minute because, again, you're dealing with what's going to stop the scroll and keep lock people in. So, you want to lock people in right away. What's going to stop them in those first few seconds to your page and to your content? And because that helps with the algorithm. And we share content from months ago that are still getting likes and they're still cycling around in the algorithm and on people's feeds because we make them relevant all the time.
Awesome. How do you see the tool like Happy fitting into the future of communications, or especially around educational safety education?
It's just, I find that when you add humor, people just remember it a little bit more. So you're stopping people and, it changes their mood. You're like, shifting something in their brain where they're like, "Hey, I'm laughing. That's funny." And then also what? It's coming from a police department. So you're you're like locking people in right away. And, I think it's so important because it's hard to make an impact on something that every year you see so many tragic numbers when it comes to traffic fatalities and, something that will never go away. The goal at the end of the day is so that everybody drives safe and you never have any fatalities on the road. And, people drove perfectly all the time. But, this is something that, measurably clearly in the way of, the outreach that we've had, the support we've had, the comments that we've had. And honestly, our traffic numbers are lower this year. They were in a good trend before Tappy made an arrival, but if Tappy helps even more, a little bit more, just to help with the moving violations that we're seeing, the speeding we're seeing, then that 1,000% is a success.
Do you have a favorite moment of thing that you put out there about Tappy?
I think my first Tappy video might be my favorite, and I found it. It was a traffic stop done in Springfield, so our Franconia Police District, and I was reviewing the body camera footage, which I spliced together the in-car camera and also the body camera because the body camera catches like the ticket printing a little better, So you're telling the story, getting the good shots, and there was the officer that pulled over a driver who very obviously ran a red light. The body camera showed him that he actually, used his air horn and he was like pointing for the guy to pull over. So I was like, it was funny to be able to, like, I pointed Tappy while the officer was going like this, I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." And it was just even more like it wasn't even I love when I come across stuff like that when I'm reviewing footage because you're like, "Oh, that makes it even better." It shows or if the officer says something, they're like, "Wow, that was terrible." I've had a couple of those where you get an honest reaction from the officer too because again, you're feeling as a viewer, you feel seen because you're like, "Yeah, what was that?" Because we feel the same way. We're like, "Hey, pull over." It humanizes us on our end, but also it's relatable and it just sticks out in people's minds a little bit.
Right. If you could expand Tappy beyond traffic safety, or if you have, what other issues do you think you'd help address?
I think, we've thought about this in our office. We're like, what else can we use Tappy for? And I think that it's open ended a little bit. I think there's so much potential for what we could do. I also like the like philosophy of like if it's not broken, don't fix it. Like, there's no shame and maybe we might branch out in the style of like traffic safety focus of what we do with Tappy, but we always like to brainstorm, come up with new ways to share information and maybe if we have something that stands out in our work that's super obvious, like maybe a narcotics, like something where officers are out, maybe it's a foot pursuit. Maybe you some way that you can very obviously tell the story with Tappy. We're not opposed to branching out and using
Awesome.
Tappy, as a new way to tell a story.
Awesome. Katie, is there a question I should have asked? And if so, how would you have answered?
Man, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything, really. It's been fun to be a part of, and I think the biggest thing is that, on our end, we have the numbers to back the growth that we've had in shifting the style and the format and strategy of our social media content. So I guess if you're, a PIO trying to branch out and come up with new content, but maybe you feel like you're limited or you have to I totally recommend finding pages that you like for inspiration and use that to your advantage and use that as your tool belt so everybody in the field of law enforcement like sharing is caring. I don't think anybody takes full ownership of there's no trademark on
No.
Tappy. People use this all the time, so don't be afraid um to just reach out to other agencies too. Like I'm not you feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have about our style and flow. But yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's go to some rapid fire questions.
Cool. Perfect.
All right.
I
Here we
like it.
go. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Movies or books?
Movies for sure.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
I'm a coffee girl.
Adult drink of choice?
I would say a very cold Sauvignon Blanc.
Adult drink of choice? I'm sorry. I said you said already. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. I'm a
What's
dog
your
girl.
favorite go-to? Awesome. What's your favorite go-to karaoke song?
I gotta do a shout out if there's any Swifties out there. So I'm gonna say it's very niche. It's All Too Well 10-minute version by Taylor Swift.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I think teleportation.
If you could instantly become an expert in one thing, what would that be?
I think investing.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Ask permission for sure.
What place would you most like to travel to?
St. Lucia in the Caribbean.
Your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Watch like the whatever TV show I'm binge watching, put that on and light a candle. Just hang out.
Who would you choose if you could have coffee with any historical figure, living or dead?
I think I would pick Audrey Hepburn. So I've always loved the work that she did with children, and I actually on a history day in elementary school, I got to dress up as her. So I've always loved the idea of maybe being able to meet her and having coffee with her would be even better.
Very cool. Final thoughts. What key points would you like our listeners to take from today's interview?
Yeah, just, don't be afraid to branch out in your content. You could keep doing what you're doing, but are you having growth? And if growth is your goal, if your goal is to get your brand out there, get your agency out there, show your community you're out there doing your job, keeping them safe. And also, everybody needs officers, right? The world of recruiting, this social media and the stuff you push out, without a doubt, helps with recruiting. So, there's so many reasons to be open minded and just don't be afraid to try something new because it's been May, since May we started Tappy and we've created it's been a whirlwind. We have a whole group of followers now that are very dialed in and demand Tappy videos every day.
Wow. Awesome. As we wrap this up, is there a piece of wisdom or a motto that you live by?
Yeah, I think there's 2 that really stand out to me. My dad is a very big quote guy, so he's always my whole life, he's been telling me good quotes that stand out in my mind, and one of them is, "If you're going through hell, keep going," Winston Churchill, and "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right," by Henry Ford. So those 2, I try to live my life with those in mind.
Those are great. I love that. How could people best reach you if they want to follow up or connect in any way regarding Tappy or anything else you guys are doing?
Sure. Yeah. So me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you on there. I'm on there just as Katie Watts, Fairfax County Police Department Public Information Officer. So my headshot's on there. So you'll see my picture. But also my email is Katie, Katie.Watts, WATTS at fairfaxcounty.gov. So either way, feel free to reach out with any questions or like if you want specifics on how, anything that we do social media related.
And I will add all that in the show notes. Katie, thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.